God bless IT people, because the whole world needed them all at once overnight. The impact of the mass outage is still impacting Colorado. An in-depth look at Donald Trump's campaign promise of retribution and which Coloradans are most likely to be targeted.
It's not like it's hidden. They're talking about it. They're actively talking about it.
Our politics guy explains the scenarios if President Biden drops out, what Colorado's DNC delegation would do and when. Turning drainage ditches into art. It's the kind of encouragement we look to end the week with around here.
My great news is that I am incredibly grateful to be sharing what comes from my heart with the community.
That's tonight on Next. If there was any doubt how vulnerable we are as a society to a cyber attack, the largest IT outage in history just proved it. An issue with an overnight software update from a cybersecurity company like The Good Guys took out planes, trains, automobiles, and a whole lot more here in Colorado and around the world. The outage impacted Microsoft systems linked to a cybersecurity firm called CrowdStrike. From airlines to banks, television stations to hospitals, systems suddenly ground to a halt. Microsoft says things are back up and running now, but the impact on travel is still apparent. DIA was on a full ground stop this morning, and the FAA says flights to Atlanta and New York are still delayed by 2 hours or more. A dozen more Democrats in Congress are calling for President Biden to drop his re-election bid. That includes 2 senators. No new calls from Colorado's delegation. As pressure on Biden only builds, politics guy Marshall Zellinger looks at what DNC delegates, including Colorado's contingent, would do if Biden drops out.
Let's go over some DNC scenarios. 1976, that's the year the Centennial State became centennial. 1976 is also the number of delegates needed to become the Democratic nominee for president. If President Biden goes to the DNC next month in Chicago, he already has about 3,900 delegates prepared to vote for him, making him the nominee. That includes the 72 delegates from the square-ish state of Colorado.
But it's important to recognize that every single delegate in Colorado is pledged to vote for the president.
In the March presidential primary, Biden earned enough support for all of Colorado's delegates to go to the DNC and vote for Biden. Colorado Democratic Party Chair Shad Murib explains we are not unique.
Yeah, so every delegate in the country is pledged. This is a reform that was created after 1968's contested convention, and so this is not a new rule. Every delegate that has been sent to Chicago from Colorado or Minnesota or California or wherever is committed to vote for the president.
Okay, so what happens if Biden drops out before the convention? Anyone who wants to be nominated has to get 300 signatures to be nominated. You know, John Hancock's. No more than 50 from any one state. A process, I'm told, that hasn't even begun in the background just yet.
And right now, there is no effort underway for any new candidate to be placed into nomination. Yeah, if Biden were to drop out, and again, there's no indication that he's leaving this race here as of this moment, certainly, if it was an open convention situation, you'd have many candidates wrestling to get those signatures to be placed into nomination.
No doubt Vice President Kamala Harris would be nominated, though others could as well. And Colorado's delegates would not automatically be committed to Harris.
If for whatever reason he chooses not to run and he's made clear he's staying in this race, our delegates would, of course, look to his guidance and his support for any other candidate should he choose to provide it, especially Vice President Harris, and weigh that decision pretty seriously.
In other words, it would be a free-for-all until someone gets 1,976 votes.
Of course, it'd be great to speak with one voice, but every delegate is, of course, their own person with their own concerns for this country. I think the fact is that
what I left out of all that is that Democrats are still working on a potential virtual roll call where the nomination could happen before the actual convention. There's concern about having a nominee in time to appear on the ballot in the state of Ohio. So it's possible the DNC is working on a timeline of no earlier than August 1st for a virtual roll call. And if that were to happen, that would take a little bit of the excitement out of the DNC at that point.
Bigger picture. Every day, President Biden says he's staying in. And every day, more and more Democrats close to him, increasingly close to him, come out and say, it's time to go. I hear what the chairman is saying when he's saying there's no indication that the president is going to go, except for the fact that his circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller every day.
I can't tell you how many times Shad Murib said that Biden's still in. He's made no indication otherwise. And it's like I was in court. I'm like, stipulated. We get it. Accepted. We don't need to say it anymore. I know that is the position. but it's putting people in squirrely situations.
Yeah. Marshall, thank you very much. Tonight, we wrap up our 5-part series on the potential impact of a second Donald Trump presidency for Coloradans. We have a similar series for Democrats' policies during the Democratic National Convention, and we'll expand on this reporting through Election Day. Donald Trump has vowed to reshape the federal government into a powerful force loyal to him and to use that power against his enemies. Some supporters of Trump here in Colorado have a specific and darker vision of retaliation. This is Decision 2024, the stakes for Colorado.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all.
Donald Trump is clear about what he'll do.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
That would give Trump the power to replace tens of thousands of career civil servants with his own political appointees. It's been a long-time priority of his pick for vice president, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance.
Fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people.
There are 38,000 civilian federal employees in Colorado, more than 2 million nationwide. Purging anti-Trump civilian federal employees is a major part of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, created by Trump advisors and allies as a blueprint for his second term. Trump's trying to distance himself from Project 2025 after previously praising Heritage's strategy.
They're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do.
A Heritage-funded project is now investigating civilians who work for the federal government, promising to publish a list of federal employees who are disloyal to Trump.
What we're doing is we're educating the American people about who these people are so that if President Trump wins and he wants to implement the agenda that the American people elected him for, he knows who's not going to be open to implementing that agenda.
When you're putting in place an autocracy, you need to get the executive branch under control.
Mario Nicholas is an election law attorney in Colorado, a former Republican who is now general counsel for the never-Trump Republican group, the Lincoln Project. He also represented the voters who sued to keep Trump off Colorado's ballot, saying Trump was constitutionally ineligible to serve after the January 6th insurrection. Nicholas says Trump's plan isn't just a purge of anti-Trump federal employees, but a wider campaign of vengeance.
I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution. Not gonna let
This is Trump speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference last year. Those are comments he's tried to walk back, saying that his retribution will be when his agenda succeeds. But Trump has used even more pointed, dehumanizing language for political enemies he says he will target.
Donald Trump has said, we will root out the communist,
Marxist, fascist, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat
win
on
elections. Do you think he's talking about you or your clients when he says that?
I mean, I think he's talking about anyone who opposes him in any way whatsoever.
Which would be you and your clients.
Which would most certainly be me and a lot of my clients.
Are there specific Coloradans, not that we have to name them today, but people that could be named that you think could be at risk of retaliation in a Trump administration?
Sure. I mean, I think that absolutely is true. I'm not going to name names because our country has a really bad history of that. And furthermore, I don't think that it's my right to put other people in danger.
Names are being named by Trump supporters who want to see retribution go beyond rhetoric and go beyond the firing of government employees.
So I created this list of 350 people.
Retired military officer Ivan Raiklin is making the rounds on right-wing fringe media with what Democratic Senator Jamie Raskin of Maryland has called a vigilante death warrant for hundreds of Americans. There are at least 4 Coloradans on that list. Raiklin wants so-called constitutional sheriffs to take the situation into their own hands.
And we provide them the necessary evidence for them to go after them for treason.
Conservative activists in Colorado have openly talked about executing their political opponents for treason for years.
If you involved in election fraud, then you deserve to hang.
That's election rigging conspiracy theorist Sean Smith speaking at a church in Castle Rock.
That is the definition of treason, and he should be hung by the neck until he's dead.
That's far-right activist and DCF Guns owner Joe Altman calling for the hanging of President Joe Biden, insisting that death is a legal punishment for treason.
I want to send the media to the gallows, the mainstream media to the gallows, radical leftists to the gallows, traitors to our nation to the gallows, and they all kind of fit in the same bucket.
This was the president of the Heritage Foundation in early July.
That we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
While Trump has denounced political violence, he's called for criminal charges for government employees who, quote-unquote, collude with the fake news. Trump confidant and former Trump administration official Kash Patel has said that a second Trump presidency would directly target journalists.
Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out.
Trump has called for a variety of criminal investigations and prosecutions, for judges and prosecutors he dislikes, for nonprofits like those in Colorado that help migrants in this country without documentation, and even the Biden family.
We are hearing people on the Trump campaign and in the Project 2025 document that we've all heard so much about is really a direct threats to retaliate for the sake of retaliating politically.
John Walsh, U.S. Attorney for Colorado under the Obama administration, says Trump ran into resistance when he tried to weaponize the Justice Department during his first term, and that by clearing out disloyal career prosecutors in favor of political supporters, Trump could use the justice system against those who criticize him.
I don't think this happens easily. I don't think it happens overnight, but I don't think it's impossible either.
One of Trump's campaign promises is most chilling to those who fear retaliation in Colorado and elsewhere: pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists, which include several Coloradans.
And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons because they are being treated so unfairly.
I think it's incredibly dangerous, but I think it's one of the first things he'll do. And I think that what it does say to America, and what it will say to not just those people who he pardons, but everyone else, is violence against other Americans, as long as you're doing it in Trump's name, is okay. I think that's exactly what it's saying.
We have a lot more to talk about tonight. Next, we'll be right back. Series of small fires kept firefighters busy in Clear Creek County today. 2 fires are now out. Largest one has burned 5 acres, and that one is just 25% contained. It's burning just north of I-75 between, I-75, goodness. It's just north of I-70 between Lawson and Empire. It's near the Georgetown exit. There's a helicopter doing water drops on that fire. Highway 40 is closed so that the helicopter can maneuver down to the creek. And good news, our team up there says it's raining.
Finally Friday, but with abundant cloud cover today, we still made it to 91 degrees this afternoon. And you know what? We're tracking a few thunderstorms tonight, widely scattered storms tomorrow. But really the big story is the cool down on Sunday. Highs in the 70s with a good chance for rain. We have moisture feeding into Colorado from the southwest and a front to the north of us. Those two features will interact to bring a round of thunderstorms tomorrow that could turn quite heavy. Tonight, the focus for heavy thunderstorms will be off to the east of us in western Nebraska and Kansas. Hail and damaging wind, the biggest potential. Tomorrow, severe weather threat low, with the exception of areas Pueblo down to Trinidad. So we'll track these storms as they move from the northwest to the southeast, and then they move out of the area. Tomorrow, we do this all over again, but temperatures will be about 5 to 6 degrees cooler. And as you're out and about this evening, temperatures are in the 70s and 80s. And as we look at the extended forecast, 84 tomorrow, 78 on Sunday, ahead of a warming trend with highs back in the 90s on Wednesday and Thursday.
Colorado's LGBTQ community sees substance abuse rates that are 2-3 times higher than the population as a whole. You see those kind of numbers all across the country, as some folks struggle with both addiction and discrimination at the same time. But there's a small nonprofit in our community that is showing the way to a better life. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the nonprofit Just Living Recovery. Their sober living community is where people in the Denver metro area can find support and also a place where they find acceptance for who they are. The nonprofit especially prides itself on affordability because they know that the longer that somebody is sober, the greater their chances of sticking with it in long-term success. So bottom line is the longer that they can afford to be in a sober living community surrounded by the supports, the better chance they're going to have to make lasting change when they're out on their own. Just Living is in Jefferson County. They have an old youth facility that they've converted into their sober living home. It needs a lot of work. Among other things, they need to replace some of the old beds that are like kid-sized with like new adult beds so they're a comfortable place for somebody to be. Another thing that they could use help with is scholarships to cover the initial cost of rent for people who are coming in and don't yet have a stable job. And one thing that the nonprofit tells me they've always wanted to be able to do but never could afford is when somebody has worked hard to gain their sobriety and they're headed out into permanent housing, they'd love to be able to give them a little bit of help, like a rent deposit or a housewarming gift, something to help them furnish a new place and to celebrate their success and sobriety. So let's help with that. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. We're like this close to having 3,000 of you signed up to simplify your giving by making a recurring monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You give once a month, we split it among all the nonprofits. And what that means is that we've started recent weekly micro-giving campaigns with $22,000 per week. Use that same QR code or text to get there.
My good news is having fun with my brothers and sisters, waiting to see my friends again.
Our favorite Friday question guarantees that we will end the week on an up note, even when it means we have to climb down into a drainage canal. That's next. There's a community effort in the Montbello neighborhood, turning decades-old drainage canals in Denver into art. Miles and miles of empty canvas and no shortage of answers to our favorite Friday question. What's your good news?
Wait for you to come down and put a little creative into this. My great news is that I am incredibly grateful to be sharing what comes from my heart with the community, doing something I love with other people every day to help grow, build, and also create beautiful new space for people to enjoy and celebrate. My name is Pat Milbury, the artist behind this canal project out here in Montbello.
The good news of the day is I'm not a struggling artist and I actually have a real job, but we have people like Pat Milbury that are out here and community members that are actually doing an amazing job beautifying this community.
Whenever we pass by here, we remember that we were part of this project.
I'm outdoors and I can feel the breeze and I can feel the good vibes from people.
My good news is today is a great day and God is good.
My long-distance girlfriend is visiting from New York this week.
My good news is having fun with my brothers and sisters, waiting to see my friends again.
My sister, she just finished her time in the military. So I'm just excited to have my best friend back and get to hang out with her and kind of enjoy our 20s together. How many people can say that they painted a mural, let alone a mural in a community that they lived in, and they're going to be able to enjoy this mural for years to come?
That is beautiful and very cool. We'll be back with your feedback. Susie writes in, you spread your very biased views with little or no proof of what you're saying. Susie, if you're talking about tonight's in-depth report on Donald Trump's plans for a second presidency, you don't have to take my words for it. That's why that report featured Trump's own words and the words of his vice president, then Trump again, then the head of a conservative group investigating his enemies in government, and then Trump again, Trump once more. You heard from a retired military officer who was building an enemies list for Trump. Then you heard from two different conservative activists in Colorado. Then you heard from the head of the Heritage Foundation. Then you heard from a Trump advisor. And then you heard from Donald Trump again once more. Not my views, their words. You heard their words. We'll see you next time.